Counselor Gwaltney, Counselor Wolverton,
Here.
Counselor Jones,
Here.
Counselor Nelms,
Here.
and Counselor Hart.
Here.
So you just have, what, one absent, Gwaltney?
Yeah. All right. The minutes from July 18th have been distributed. Is there a motion to dispense with the reading and approve them as distributed?
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Hart made the motion. Counselor Nelms seconded that. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. That's 4-0. That passes. 1903-22, request to consider traffic calming updates for existing projects. So Ward 2. Well,
Gail,
what's
do you
the
know
report
if we
here
have any of
from?
those numbers back from Randy? We had some a couple weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah, so I
But that was-
emailed this out. There are 4 different diagrams that I put together. That was
I probably didn't type it.
to be heard 2 weeks ago, but then this group didn't meet.
Right.
Yeah, so that's it up on the screen. We can talk as much or as little about it as you think.
I mean, overall, I think the numbers obviously went down. I mean, you had a synopsis, right?
Yeah, that's right. So then we'll just take this one, for example. This one's on Delcris. And so before chicanes, when we did the study, the average speed was 30 and 33 miles per hour going in both directions, with the 85th percentile around 35 and 40 miles per hour, which is pretty fast.
Speed limit's 25?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then after we installed the chicanes, the average speed dropped to 27 miles per hour, and the 85th percentile was 33 and 35 miles per hour. So I think what we saw was that the folks who drive like they're supposed to slowed down a little bit, and the speeders continue to speed. But the speeders that are continuing to speed, their speeds did reduce by 5 or so miles per hour. And I think this is typical across all the studies that we did with chicanes.
So you think that, based on your experiences, are they working generally?
Yes. They work to slow traffic.
Which
is there?
I think that for all of these particular streets, I think that was the primary concern, was speeding and/or cut through traffic. You know, we've gotten positive and mixed feedback, we'll say.
Yeah.
So we had some that were very happy about them. We had some that were not so happy about them. I mean, the problem is there's not going to be a fix that only affects the people that the neighbors don't want in the neighborhood, because the fact of the matter is some of those are their neighbors that are producing the problems. What were you gonna say?
Well, I think that so Brian put up a button on the public input.
There's
form.
South Forest, yeah.
On the public input form where folks could go in and say whether they liked them or not, or provide feedback. And we got about half and half, folks who liked them against folks that didn't.
Could I ask a question? Using chicanes, is that typically done more successfully where you don't have on-street parking? In other words, where these are installed in different cities and where I've seen them, there is no on-street parking. That's just been my noticing other cities and, making note. And I also noticed it driving through London. I mean, outside of London, I mean, there's no on-street parking. Is that normally the case, or are there a lot of cities that have on-street parking that use these successfully as well?
So yes to both, I think.
Okay.
Typically, so in Birmingham just installed several of these. They, in some instances, they have similar. They're not. We really don't have on-street parking on South Forest, right? So people do it. Just like on Roseland, if we were installed chicanes, people don't park on Roseland, but they could, similarly to like Ed Del Chris, we don't have no parking signs along the
Right. Okay.
I mean, we wouldn't put them on 18th Street to slow traffic where we have on street parking. Does that make sense?
And I would just add the 2 occurrences in Birmingham, at least that I've seen, kind of in the 2 that I can think of are kind of close to my office in the Avondale, Forest Park area. I mean, they actually, what they did, in addition to the chicanes, they actually box in the parking, so it's kind of creates, you know,
Designated parking
narrower,
areas.
yeah, lane width, by the parking striping as well as the chicane. And then sometimes the concrete planters, you know, book in the parking spots so that even if there's not cars parked there, it creates that, yeah, that slight misdirection of traffic, so it's not just a straight lane, and so the lanes are a little bit tighter. But I mean,
That's right.
and I think, you know, kind of to the feedback from the public through the forum, a lot of the complaint, in addition to some of its location, but I think a lot of it is also just the temporary materials. If they were permanent materials with planters or, you know, with curbs, I think it would take care of about half of the negative feedback, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't look nice. When they're in the
Yeah,
temporary
Well,
phase.
yeah.
We understand
And
that.
I'm honestly even surprised we have some of the traffic data that we do, because I think some of them weren't lasted very long.
Right.
So I agree with Counselor Sims that, you know, should they become more permanent? I know we did temporary to get some data and potentially take some feedback about location as well for making them more permanent if we were to go that route.
Okay, so are we mainly just carrying this over for periodic reports, or is there some action that we're looking from public safety to accomplish? What,
I don't know.
you don't
Yeah.
know? I wish I knew.
You know, Walter, I think this was, you know, this was kind of the first implementation of utilizing the traffic calming policy and going to the appendix and saying, here's a list of things we can do, you know, pick something and go with it. And we kind of chose this because it was temporary in nature, wouldn't produce something permanent, and also was relatively inexpensive to implement and see, you know, how things went. So, I mean, I think there could be actionable items, but I believe that would have to be, Mr. Kendrick, would we have to create a new item if we were to make something permanent out of one or the other of these?
That's really just a discretionary call of council, legal English.
I just didn't know if we had to pass an ordinance or,
Well, you'll have to pass the ordinance, absolutely.
but this item would be sufficient to.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of an informational, to me, item.
We did kind of put it in as a
Yeah.
placeholder while we got some data, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to find out how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah, do we have an approximate cost if any of them were to be permanent?
No.
Okay.
So I think, I mean, from my understanding of how this originated, you know, we had the first installation of the chicanes where we didn't get data from the pneumatic tubes, and then we have had the second installation. So this has stayed open for a while to get updates. But I believe the installations in temporary nature is basically concluded, right?
That's correct.
So we could, I think, move on and, you know, send this item on to be dropped and so forth.
Okay.
And then I think probably discuss it through the budgetary process about any permanent installation in the future. I mean, that's my thoughts on it, but.
Okay, I'm fine if we drop it and then handle it on a case-by-case basis, or keep it there forever. Pleasure of the
Did
committee.
I'm trying to remember if we talked about any of that in the budget for next year. Was that discussed? or
Didn't
not?
you ask for
We-
something? in
we
the
put
budget?
some sort of
We have
infrastructure in.
We have a lump sum amount of money proposed in the.
If the mayor left it in there, we still gotta give it.
In the new budget for traffic calming. So we didn't identify. where-
Specific locations or anything.
Or even specific techniques or methods.
Sure. Okay. And will that be discretionary up to, I guess what I'm trying to figure out, Walter, is if Mr. Kendrick saying you could create something permanent out of this. If those funds are available October, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, they'll be available in October, that's when the year starts.
Was that something that was gonna need to go through finance committee, or was that kind of discretionary based on how the engineering budget is kind of set?
Right, so that would be under capital, I think, isn't that where we put it? And that would need to come to finance.
Yeah, there's some,
That's correct.
well, the mayor's budget's still spoiler alert, because it doesn't get presented until next Monday. But right now, there is some money in capital for, just traffic calming
Yeah.
that Kale requested.
So that would come back to this committee. And I would, yeah, I wouldn't take that on, that's discretionary.
Okay. I just know in the past, there's been some small infrastructure budget that
Yeah.
didn't necessarily have to go through finance.
There's a line item right now, I think, that we put traffic calming in.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
It was not small infrastructure,
Gotcha.
if it stays
It
in
was
there
separated, yeah.
for next Monday.
Okay, so what
To be
does the
determined.
committee want to do, carry this over or drop this and do it case by case? What,
I mean, it's your ward.
or request, we
Well,
send it to
it's really
the budget?
our ward, but also his ward and Julie and Barry's ward. It's multiple wards, so it says us, but, I'm fine either way. It's-
It might be best if we took it off and then
Just table it?
identified the project whenever they were identified, and just brought them back here.
Tabling is fine too.
Let's just, I'll move the table.
Thank that. Councilor Wolf, seconded by Councilor Clark to table. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign, that's 4-0 to table. Right. 08-08-22, public hearing set for September 12th. Man, we're gonna be busy that day. At 6 p.m. for consideration of condemnation of the structure at 2562 18th Street South. Mr. Pugh.
Yes, sir.
Hello there.
In March of this year, the abatement board identified this as an unsafe structure after numerous complaints and concerns about this facade possibly coming loose and probably landing on the sidewalk. An unsafe structure notice was sent out, giving the owner until May 16th. The notice did expire, without any repairs being made, but in June, the owner contacted me, and we met on site. He contacted his engineer. The engineer provided some plans to him to rebuild this. At this point, I don't know where you stand. I'll give a run at you. Talk to me about that, but the owner's here.
I've submitted Wyatt plans dated 6/23. We've not pulled a permit, but we'll pull it in the morning. We tried to get here today before 5, but traffic didn't let us. We intend to start work and keep in what our stamp drawing has to fix it tomorrow. I mean, if anybody does construction, it takes a while to get people there. It's been a little bit of a hectic environment out there. Our framers were delayed on other jobs. It's as simple as that. We can do this however y'all want to do this, but I would think the most efficient thing is for us to pull a permit in the morning and do the work. We'll get done, why, just send somebody to inspect it, we can move on.
Okay, well, I'll let the committee ask
Sir, do you
questions.
not decide
I'll
if
ask
we-
my questions. Is there any
please.
questions from the committee?
Jared, what are you planning there? What's that gonna be?
Right now, I'm planning to fix the unsafe issue that needs to be repaired. But I'll be happy to listen to any ideas you have for what we should do with it after that. The notice was sent to the wrong address, which I don't occupy or work at, and that's why it took so much time to get back to Mr. Pugh, and I've been out of the country. We fully intend to begin work. Materials were purchased as recently as today, and a dumpster comes in the morning. I understand y'all have processes, and we're more than happy to comply and do what's needed to be done to make it safe.
Walter?
Yes,
So
sir.
this is already set for a public hearing for Monday night.
But it's for the
It's
12th.
not been published yet.
I'm sorry, for the 12th.
For the 12th.
Yes, sir.
September.
We haven't posted in the messenger yet.
So anyway, it'll be set, The earliest the public hearing we set is the 12th.
September 12th.
So if, Jared, if this gets solved before then we'll just take care of that issue without it being the report from Mr. Pugh will be, it's been handled, the danger's no longer there, and like I said, we all move on. So, hopefully that's what happens.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. I know you mentioned framers being delayed. The property's coming down completely, correct?
Not now.
No, that's
He's
not
just
what.
gonna fix the unsafe
Okay.
structure.
What do you think? You can ask me anything you want.
No, I just didn't know if it was a complete tear down in the
I mean,
plans
looking
or.
at it, it's about to fall on the sidewalk, so I would think the building should come down, that if you can somehow save this, it just doesn't look.
Mr. Zane, I'll leave that to the engineers as to
Yeah.
whether or not we just want the building to be safe, whatever that means, and if that's, whatever work it takes to do that, then it takes to do that.
Set of drawings.
But I think that what will ultimately happen is that, this will be set and the report will be from Wyatt, whatever it is, that it's either a safe structure at that point or not. You've got some time to get it to that point, and then it becomes easy. I think everyone is concerned about the timing, and I understand about construction and everything, but because this is a public sidewalk in front of this building, I think everyone is concerned that this gets done as quickly as possible. But it sounds like you're moving that direction if you're getting out there tomorrow, so hopefully that.
Your concern is valid. These plans are dated 6/23 that we submitted to Wyatt. We have been patiently waiting. We thought they'd be there 3 weeks ago. We started delivering materials approximately 3 weeks ago. And it's just taking longer than we thought to get the guys assembled to come do the work. It's as simple as that. All I'm saying is, we're gonna start working. If they're not there tomorrow, they'll be there the next day. They told me they would be there tomorrow. I'm sure no one's ever had that happen before in this construction environment.
Yeah.
But they say they're gonna be there tomorrow.
I was
Joe
just
says
asking
that
because
they'll
I
be
didn't
there
know the
tomorrow.
extent of the project. I didn't know if it was gonna come down regardless or if.
It has the potential to come down.
Yeah.
And in a separate format. I don't think this is the format, this is a public safety meeting. We can discuss ways to have it come down and ways to work together. But I don't think this is the format for that. I think this is a format to address a safety issue. These drawings that were submitted by this licensed engineer do that. This is an expense, this is still
Sure.
$6,000.
So sometimes buildings are going to come down that come in this format to this committee. That's all why I was asking. So
I'm
sometimes
open.
the solution is, hey, the building's already gonna come down, whether the property owner does it and the city does it is what ends up being
I'm
decided.
open to any suggestions you may have. I mean, if you wanna.
Well, I think from our perspective, at least with regard to this item, the only question that's before us is it safe or is it not? Is it a danger or is it not? Both as it currently exists and after you do the work. So that when it comes to us, it'll either be described to us as a danger by the engineers or it won't. And that would be the only consideration.
We have used that building concurrent with the building on the corner over the years for some material storage. We want it to be safe. People that work may go in and out of there. And, that's why we had an engineer do this. We talked about an architect versus an engineer. We determined an engineer was the cleanest path, because that's what an architect would do, is hire an engineer. At some point, I'm open to discuss tearing it down. Based on my rough calculations, this was the most cost-effective path to get this box checked. Meaning fix it versus tear it down.
So from the committee standpoint, you can obviously do whatever you want to do, but I would simply say, why don't you send it out without, my recommendation would be send it out without recommendation. Hopefully by the time that we deal with it at council, it will be resolved.
Right.
No problem, and, we'll either have a public hearing or we won't.
And the reason I agree with that is because we have plenty of time to move forward on you doing what you're already doing. And so you're already in the process, so I don't see.
We hoped to have it done last week. I
Right.
know it sounds bizarre, it's just been really difficult to get all the dominoes to lay out in this particular frame I like to use.
Yeah,
And-
I get it. Construction The difference in this and a regular construction project is we got a danger to the public, and so for us, this has to be done quickly.
All right, so on that note, we get this fixed, are we currently holding up progress on the sidewalk, or is that held up for other reasons?
So I'm not sure the sidewalk has reached your block yet, but I will tell you, I don't think that they're going to do it until this is fixed. I wouldn't want to be in front of a jackhammer.
I would think you can schedule that work for.
So yeah, I do think that will become an issue if you do not get it done, but the issue before us tonight is really the danger that it's posing to anyone.
So short any unforeseen issues, I'd say about Tuesday or Wednesday next week, they'll be out of there. It's a little more complex than people think. There's some old glass in there.
Sure.
It needs to be dealt with a certain way. It's not tempered to our knowledge, things of that nature, so we're trying to do it the same way. We will have a dumpster on the street at the corner for about 4 days, which is typically been used for parking, not 18th Street, but around the corner. And I'll come by here up in the morning and get a permit. Like I said, I'm gonna try to come today.
Jared, just so you know, by the way, you mentioned that the notice went to the wrong address. It went to the address that's on file with the tax assessor. I had no idea you had moved to Highland.
I know, it went to my old office.
Okay. So we got that.
I'm sure no
I have
one.
his new
Okay,
address.
okay.
I'm sure that, you know, anyone who's ever moved from one business to another business knows that if your mail goes to where you used to work and you don't work there anymore, they might not be in a hurry to forward it to you.
Right.
It's just a snafu.
All right, so from our standpoint, I guess proper motion is send it out with that recommendation pending the public hearing on September 12th at 6 p.m.
I'll make a motion.
I mean, process-wise, I'm gonna do the work.
Yeah.
After we
Yeah.
call you to inspect it,
Yeah.
and that'll be the end of this, correct?
Should be.
Until we have a plan to do something great. And John's gonna find us an amazing tenant to rent it, so nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's a beautiful plan. I love it. All right, so motion made by Councilor Nellums. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Wolverton.
No pressure.
Any other questions? All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign, 4-0, that passes.
Counselor Jones, just
Yes.
kind of not related to voting on the item, but related to the project. So will the sidewalk have signage that denotes it being closed during this project, I'd assume?
Sidewalk is already closed, it's already coned, the asphalt's already cut. We're gonna work within the area that's already been marked off to answer your question. We're going to put additional cones out this evening to prepare for a dumpster delivery, which, again, as silly as this sounds, will be between 5 and 9 a.m. That was the window I was given.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make
Listen, I appreciate everything y'all do. I know there's a lot of volunteers. I know there's a lot of people who sign up for a job who get stuck here late at night. I appreciate all of them. And I'm sorry that this got delayed, trust me. But we'll get it resolved, and I'll get my addresses on file, updated, because I think there's 4 or 5 of them that are wrong.
Don't move your office again.
Well, I mean, we've got a pretty nice one coming on the corner of Central Avenue right now that I think's looking pretty good. And, you know, we've worked hard over the years to do some good
I appreciate
stuff.
you coming up here. I really do.
I just felt like this was getting dealt with in a way that not everybody had the facts of why is it not getting it done. I got the notice late, and then, believe it or not, when I called the engineer, it was like a 3-week wait.
Okay, good deal. Appreciate it very
We're
much.
fine here. Y'all have a great
Okay,
evening.
you too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? With that, we're adjourned.